Hello and welcome to our channel. In a previous video, we have talked about the stakeholder management approaches, the very standard approaches in strategic planning for any project success. But in public health and in research projects which are designed to generate learnings for policy translation, that is knowledge translation, we not just need management skills, but leadership skills. We need to take people, stakeholders along with us, so that when we come up with the evidence gets translated into action that with minimal resistance. In that case, we must not just identify our stakeholders and manage them in a way that they are not resisting the project interventions, but also lead them in partnership towards the overall vision of building healthier societies or healthier communities. Uh, in the previous video, we spoke about the 2D power impact and the 3D salience model, where we talked about the power, legitimacy, and urgency overlaps between the stakeholders. Those are basically to understand how the stakeholders are positioned and how we should manage them so that they do not adversely affect our study or our project outcomes. In today's video, we shall make it more actionable. We shall be talking about the alignment, interest, and influence matrix developed by the Overseas Development Institute for its research and policy in international development study, the RAPID framework. It's alignment, interest, influence matrix. So influence means what we have done is we already plotted all the stakeholders here. So stakeholders do have influence, a lot of influence on the outcome. And this matrix is actually plotting the other two elements, that is alignment with approach and the interest with outcome. Let us go back to 2020, where we have the COVID-19 pandemic hitting us, and each one of us wants this pandemic to come down and as early as possible without having a surge in the number of cases. As a first intervention, governments proposed that we should mask up. And there were people who were supporting, so they wore masks. And then there were also substantial segments of the society which were resisting masking up. So they felt that masking up is not the right approach, even if they also wanted the pandemic to end. That means there were people who were aligned, who were interested in the outcome, that is the end of the pandemic. So they did not want the pandemic to surge, but they were not aligning with the approach of masking up. And then there were people who were aligning with the approach of masking up as well as the pandemic to end. There were also certain communities, certain populations who would mask up whether there was a pandemic or no pandemic. They had this cultural habit of wearing masks in public places. So they were anyways aligned with the approach. They would support that, okay, we should all mask up, but they were not quite yet bought in with the outcome that the pandemic should end and masking up is going to help in that direction. And then there would be some communities or some societies which have, or some people, some stakeholders who are not interested either in the pandemic nor in masking up. So they are disinterested, they are disengaged either ways. Our interest here is to bring everyone into this quadrant where they have very high interest in the outcome and also are absolutely in alignment with the approach that we're proposing. What do we do if they come to this quadrant? We engage with them in partnership mode. So we partner with these stakeholders. The more stakeholders we have in this quadrant, the stronger our partnership, the more amplified our efforts are towards the outcome. So we want everyone to move in this into this quadrant. But there are stakeholders who are here. That means they are in high alignment with the approach, but they're not interested in the outcome. How do we know if someone is interested in the outcome or not? There are certain markers. One of the key markers is when they are vocal about that outcome. So they have spoken in different forums or different formats that they want this to end. They have committed, verbally at least. And going further, one step further could be they have allocated resources. That means they have put in some budgets to move towards that outcome, budgets or resources in terms of human resources or technology or office space, logistics, some kind of support they've already extended. That means they have shown some kind of interest. But here we have the stakeholder constituency, which have not yet shown an interest, but they're in alignment with the approach. Why are they not showing interest? That's the question. And what could we do to build their interest? They are not showing interest. So I'm trying to simplify things here. They are possibly not showing interest because they do not have the resources, or they do not have the wherewithal, they do not have the capacity, If we build the capacity, if we provide them with the resources, maybe they would be excited and come along because they're already in alignment with the approach. And once they start expressing interest in the outcome, that means they're moving in this direction. We need to build enthusiasm in this stakeholder constituency so that they move towards the partnership zone, partnership quadrant. Now, what about people who have very high interest with the outcome but are not in alignment with the approach that we are proposing? Coming back to our example, people who are interested in the pandemic coming to an end, but they're not okay with wearing masks. This is a category that can resist. So since they are not buying the approach, they will resist the approach most likely. Why would they resist the approach? They would resist the approach because of two reasons. Either they do not know about the approach, they do not understand the approach. The other one is they have beliefs which are counter to the approach. So they feel that this approach is not just going to fail, but it's also going to damage. So they have contrarian beliefs. What we need to do is we need to persuade this particular group. So we need to negotiate. We need to negotiate and coax them. So we need to persuade them. And if needed, we may also have to challenge their belief. So challenge, but strategically. Our intention is not to antagonize them. We want to challenge their beliefs. So we may need to bust their myth. We need, for example, if there is a lot of disinformation or misinformation going around, we need to clarify on those aspects. If we do this, then they would move in the direction of our partnership quadrant. We do this by making them aware. Okay, so if we make them aware by strategically negotiating, coaxing, or challenging their myths, they would move towards a partnership quadrant, and that's when we have these stakeholders also engaged with us. Now, what to do with the stakeholder constituencies which are having low alignment with the approach and low interest in the outcome? So they are basically indifferent. Here we need to do both. We need to build their awareness as well as enthusiasm. So we need to make them aware, plus also work on their enthusiasm so that they move towards a partnership realm. This has to be strategic. What we could also do is, like, since these are in inertia, and if these stakeholders are not in substantial numbers or they're not having as much influence as other stakeholders, we may just simply ignore them or even monitor them before we start intervening on them. We need to monitor them because if we don't monitor, they may move into this quadrant. If they move into this quadrant, that means they are not in alignment with the approach, but they are okay with the interest, they're okay with the outcome. Then they may resist. And we do not want to waste our energies or resources trying to fight resistant stakeholders. That brings us to an understanding of the different levels of engagement that stakeholders could show. Let us plot them. These are not in sequence, but mostly they would move in this sequence, but not necessarily in this sequence. And depending on our continued stakeholder management approaches, they may move across these levels of engagement. One category of engagement is unaware. Here. So here, they're unaware. The other level of engagement could be resistant. If they are unaware, and if they develop some kind of myths or wrong beliefs, they may become resistant. They may move into this quadrant. The third is the neutral quadrant. They're neutral, they're not resisting, not necessarily unaware, they're aware, but they're not showing much interest. Then we have the supportive quadrant. They will support, they will not oppose, but they may not come upfront in taking decisions and leading towards that strategic outcome. The fifth category is leading. If they are in the leading category, then they are here. They are ready to be partners, right? An understanding of the alignment, interest, and influence matrix helps us in not just strategizing as a manager for the overall success of the project, but as a leader for bringing societal change. We hope that you found this as a necessary actionable addition to the matrices on stakeholder engagement that we discussed in the previous video. Please do let us know if you have any thoughts on this. Thank you.